Posting on social media can be a bit of a minefield at the moment. Not only do you have multiple platforms to post on, you've got 5 ways you can make posts. You can do reels, carousels, stories, normal posts, and you can do lives. And with all that in mind, it can be quite confusing as to what to post, when to post it, and what type of content is best for which type of reaction that you want from people. And the problem is that you haven't got a full-time social media team like Gary Vee to kick out your content all the time. You haven't got someone following you around like Alex Hormozy and recording your stuff and then editing it out. And you just can't keep up with the volume of posting that the gurus say you need to in order to get reactions and build your audience. And what happens is you just end up posting random stuff, hoping that it's going to have the desired effect. But this can be quite stressful, it can increase your anxiety, lead to burnout, and your content becomes very low quality because you're just trying to get stuff out rather than thinking, is this going to be a quality post that my audience is going to engage with? So in this video, the aim is to give you a bit of insight into what you should be posting and when, what type of post will work best for the type of message you're trying to convey, help you build better content, hopefully reduce your stress a little bit, and get people engaging more with your content and make social media fun again for you. Social media should be fun. You should enjoy what you do rather than seeing it as a job, because as soon as you see something as a job, it becomes a little bit of a chore, a little bit of a churn, and you end up resenting it. I'm also going to give you a bit of insight into how I structure my content, the strategy behind my content, and how I build that around all the other things that I do to attract new customers and grow my business. Just before we do that though, if you're new to me and you're watching this video as a recommendation, my name's Tom Blackman. I'm the bodybuilding business mentor. I've owned a gym in Bristol for about 15 years, and I've been coaching online for about that time as well. And what I do in these videos is share some of the stuff that I do and have done in the past in order to grow my business, to help people like you, if you're a gym owner or an online fitness coach, to grow your business without making the mistakes that I have done in the past. So hope you enjoy the video. And if you could give me a subscribe, that would be really good. Thanks very much. So your social media strategy should be based around helping people to know, like, and trust you so that they feel comfortable buying from you. There's 4 basic elements to this. There's reach, which is making sure more people are coming into your ecosystem and growing your audience. Then there's engagement, which is getting those people to actually do something on your content, comment, share, like our stuff, and also take action so that we can send them something and get them into our email list and nurture them into being hopefully paying customers. And then there's 7-11-4, which is a Google metric which determines how long someone has to engage with you before they're likely to buy. And that's 7 hours of digesting your content. That could be watching your videos, reading your posts, watching your stories. Then you have 11 touch points, which is any time they've touched your business. This could be your website, liking a post on Instagram, reading one of your emails, getting one of your lead magnets. Anytime they've touched your business, which helps build confidence in them that you're not some scam artist or someone like a fake profile on Instagram trying to sell them something. And the 4 is 4 locations. So this helps then build trust that you're everywhere, so not just some sort of scammer setting up shop with a faceless profile. If you are on things like TikTok, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and they can find you in all those places, it generally tends to reinforce that you're someone that they can trust. And also, if they're on all those places, it helps them to get to know you better, to see more of your content. And the last thing is the deep dive, which is where you showcase your knowledge, your authority on an area, that you're a specialist in an area, and it allows them to understand that you know what you're talking about, you're an expert, and you can solve their problem for them because you're talking in depth about something and explaining it clearly so that they can understand. So in order to do all these things, there's a couple of ways we can post on Instagram, and that's what we're going to go into now. So if you look at Instagram, you've got 4 basic ways to post, and that is with Reels, with video content. You also have Carousels, which is multiple slides or multiple pictures. You have Posts, which is just the single image post. And then you also have stories. And stories are obviously a mixture of videos, posts, shared posts, all that sort of stuff. So there's 4 basic ways to go here. I would count lives as reels because when you do them, they get posted onto the reels feed. So we won't have lives as a separate one. We'll just bung it into reels for the purpose of this video. So there's 4 ways you can post, and there's 4 things we're trying to achieve here: either reach, engagement, 711-4, or a deep dive. But which of these are best for each of those types of posts? So let's go into each one in detail. So reels are the king for reach. That's been shown by a recent Metricool study. They do one every year, and reels always come out on top in terms of reach. Although the reach has gone down slightly in the last couple of years, and carousels are catching them up, but reels remain the top thing for reach. So in terms of reach, if we're trying to grow our audience, that is the best one. So we're going to give that 2 ticks. Now, reach on carousels is also good. It's better than it used to be, and that's generally because of the integration of, you can now add music to carousels, and you can also have up to 20 carousel slides. And so if you put music onto your carousels, that actually features on the reels feed. So it's quite good for reach. The other reason why carousels are good for reach is because when you post a carousel with, say, 10 slides on it, each one of those slides can get shown to a different person multiple times. Someone might see slide 1, slide 2, slide 3, slide 4 on different days, and the algorithm learns what they engage more with. So it gives you multiple opportunities to showcase your post to different people. So it's a lot better from reach than, say, a normal Instagram single slide post would be. So posts aren't good for reach at all. In fact, the Metricool study showed that they were really poor, although they have improved over the last year or so, and that's mainly because of the addition of music, which allows you to, say, post memes and stuff like that, which are image posts but have music next to them. So the reach on posts is going up, but it's nowhere near what carousels or indeed reels are. So if you're trying to grow your audience, reach isn't the best thing to do, but it's very good for engaging with your current audience. And what you'll normally find is on single image posts that it's shown to most of your followers and it doesn't really get shown to everyone else. So if you've got something like a sales post about your new program that's launching, absolutely you need to put an image post onto that, because it's only your followers, give or take, that are going to see that. And stories aren't very good for reach either, because mainly they get shown to your existing followers. Although there is something in stories that they can get shown. So if you say tag a location or a place you've been, something like that, it can get shown to, say, people in the area. So the gym, my gym that I own, when we share posts, we always tag the location, which is Ministry of Fitness Bristol. And what we see is people on the Bristol story who've watched what's going on in Bristol, they get shown that as well. It is only minor, but it's still something to consider. If, say, you do in-person coaching inside a certain location, you can be shown to that area's location, if you know what I mean. So we've done reach. Now what about engagement? So engagement is likes, shares, comments, and also engaging on our call to action. So like comment this for this thing, or if you're trying to do a lead magnet. Now, each one of these can get likes, so I don't think we can really break that down in terms of what gets the most likes, because a meme, for example, generally gets a lot more likes than, say, a really serious carousel. But a carousel which is going like deep dive into a topic is very likely to get a lot of saves, but not a lot of likes. And I see that on my content a lot. I get more people saving my carousels than they do liking them. And I think the reason for that is... okay, maybe they don't want me to know that they've liked their stuff, or it's the fact that people are now wise to, if they like something, then what happens next is the coach barges into their DMs saying, hey, I see you like my post or like my carousel, would you like to have a chat about that? So people have gotten wise to that, and now if there's something that they really value, is something that relates to them and engages with them, they might save it, but they won't like it, so that you don't then jump into their DMs and ask them if they want to buy your coaching. But what that does mean, it shows the algorithm that our stuff is engaging content and people are liking it. So the saves, and although you can't see who saved your stuff, which is a bit annoying, but as long as they have saved it, that's good. So let's just focus on the call to actions. Are people likely to engage on a call to action with this type of post? Now, what I found with Reels is that yes, people do engage with a call to action, But the problem you've got with a reel is that a lot of the time people have got to watch to the end. Now, if people are only watching, say, 30 seconds of a video and the call to action is at the end, then they might swipe off before they've had you saying, hey, get this thing. Now, what you could do is obviously say at the beginning of the reel, get this thing, but then they might swap off straight away if you do that, if you haven't said why they should watch the reel. So what I tend to find for reels is the call to action is good. You can get good call to actions from it. But what I've actually found is on carousels, the call to actions are a lot better. I've run a test on this with a couple of my lead magnets, and the exact same content, the same script for the reel, and the same words in a carousel, and exactly the same copy on my carousel as my reels. The carousel got more engagement, such as people saying, yes, I'd like that lead magnet, please. So I always think that the carousels are best for call to actions, although that doesn't mean you shouldn't do one on a reel, because you absolutely should. But just be aware that if it's a long one, like a minute and a half, you've got to hold people's attention for that time. Now, you might be saying here, oh, but hold on, people have got to swipe to the end of the carousel in order to get the call to action. Yes, that's true. But there's an interesting thing here, is that people will be wary and mindful of their time when they're watching a reel. If they're watching something and going through it on their phone, then they're mindful of how long they've spent watching that, because they're listening to someone, they're watching rather than reading. Whereas with a carousel, if you do it right, you don't have loads and loads of text on each slide, so it's not a big thing for them to read. They all spend more time swiping and reading because they can swipe. It's an action. Their eyes are getting engaged and their brain's getting engaged. They'll swipe through and maybe spend more time on the carousel digesting the exact same copy than they would on the reel. The other thing to think about is that with carousels, people can read at their own time, whereas with a reel, if you talk fast or the subtitles come up too fast, you've got loads of flashy things going on, it can distract from that. I think that's why carousels get better call to actions. I'm sure someone's done a study on this, which they can maybe prove me wrong, but from my experience, I found that carousels get better call to actions. For posts, call to actions are okay. It depends, really. Actions on posts are a difficult one because it really does depend on what you've put in that single image post. If it is a very clear single image saying, hey, buy this thing now and get this result, that's probably going to be a lot better than just an image of you in the gym and then a load of text copy. Now, obviously, this is going to depend on the person reading because people digest stuff differently. But I've found that if you put like a carousel with even just two slides on it, with a call to action slide after the main image slide, that does a lot better than just having one image. But that would be a carousel, not a single image. So call to actions are okay-ish on posts. It does depend on what you're selling or what you're trying to get them to do. And generally, if you've built up beforehand, so if you are going to sell on a single post and you've built up beforehand with lots of reels and carousels and loads of other content saying this thing is coming, and all of a sudden you drop this thing saying now is the time to buy, I would say that's going to get more action than, say, if you just dropped it out of nowhere. And stories, in terms of call to actions, I don't really get that much from stories, although most people could prove me wrong on this one. I find in terms of if I again post the same type of stuff on my carousels than I do on my stories, I get a lot more people engaging on the carousels than I do on the stories. That's just my experience. So generally with call to actions, on stories, it might just be one thing, such as drop your email address to get this, because you can put question boxes in there. And with stories, it is a bit of a different kettle of fish because you've got loads of things you've got on there. You can put in direct links, you can put in question boxes, you can put in tap here to get this thing. So there's lots and lots of different ways you can ask people to take action. But in terms of what I found in terms of like get my lead magnets, that sort of thing, carousels generally tend to do better. And the reason I think that is because, again, with carousels, you can swipe, you can digest more information, decide if you want that thing before then clicking on it. With stories, you've got 15 seconds. And yes, I know you can post multiple story slides, but if you look at the data from Instagram, and also I think Metricool did a thing on this, the more slides you have in a story, the less overall reach it gets. So you're sort of in a quandary of, well, how many things do I have to post in order to get people to take action, and how many people are going to see this? And we already know that reach on stories is reduced compared to what it is on the main feed. So in a bit of a quandary there. So that's the reason I put it that way. Okay, what about 7-11-4? What about building that bond with our audience so they know, like, and trust us and hopefully are going to buy from us in the future? Well, Reels are really good for 7-11-4 because it gives us a video way to engage with someone. And if people watch to the end of, say, your reel, that's a minute they've spent looking at your face, listening to your voice. So it starts to build that bond with them, which you just don't get on a single image post or a carousel. So in terms of building these 7 hours, Reels are very good. Obviously 11 touch points. If they've watched 11 of your Reels, that's great as well. And people can just binge watch Reels if they want to. For locations, you can repost your Reels over to YouTube, to TikTok, to LinkedIn, to Facebook, all these other places. So Reels are a really good way of building that know, like, and trust with your audience and building that 7-11-4. So that gets a double tick in my book. And carousels as well are, I think, good for the 7-11-4. Not as good as Reels, but they definitely deserve a tick there. And the reason for that is that if someone is swiping right, swiping left, or however you want to look at it, on your carousels, and they're reading more about it and getting to know you better, and also because carousels are good for deep dives, they're knowing you a bit more and they're trusting you a bit more because you're talking about subjects in depth which they're interested in. It does help build that 7-11-4. The problem with carousels is you can't really post them that well to Facebook. They don't really come out the same. You can post carousels over to TikTok in the form of a Reels post, but you could do that on Instagram as well. And I don't think you can post carousels onto YouTube. You can have YouTube slides, YouTube posts, of course, which direct to a video, but I don't think carousels can have that massive sort of repurposing reach that, say, Reels can. So they only get one tick from me for 7-11-4. And posts, I would say, aren't so good for 7-11-4. Now, what they are good for is getting people to know you. So you can post things like an image of you with your family, you training, behind the scenes stuff. So it does help develop that in terms of them knowing you. But because it's only a single post, it's only a scroll, and they might stop if they find it interesting, I would say is not as good. But for stories, 7-11-4 is pretty good because if they like watching you, and if you've got a video, 15-second video, and they watch 4 of those, that's as good as watching a reel. So for me, stories are 7-11-4, and stories generally tend to be more personal, stuff about you, behind the scenes, your personal life, stuff that's going on in your business, which is maybe relevant to what they're interested in. It does help build that bond about you as a proper human being rather than just someone who just slaps on carousels and like buy my shit all the time images. And finally, we're at the deep dive. So the deep dive for Reels is not so good because, oh, that's not deep dive. Let's get that right. So it's deep dive. I would say that for Reels, it's not so good as in terms of going really deep into a subject because you've only got about a minute and most people watch Reels for about 30 seconds to 45 seconds. So unless it's something that's really engaging for them, and not all of your content is going to be really engaging for everybody, I would say it's not so good for a deep dive. The other reason why Reels aren't great for these deep dive types of posts is because people have to listen and watch and read at the same time. A lot of people watch Reels on silent, so they're just looking at the subtitles. And because they have to read at your pace rather than their own pace, they might not get some of the things you're talking about. And if you've got loads of flashy things going off in the background and things flying in and all this other stuff, it might not be something they really take in. So they might not take in the information. So Reels for me isn't great for deep diving. It generally tends to be talking about one point and one point in brief, and then maybe directing to something else where they can get a deep dive. Carousels, though, are the king for deep dives, in my opinion, because you can get 20 slides, for example, on a carousel. On those slides, you can have a reasonable amount of text. I would say it's not a good idea to put a load of text on a carousel because as soon as someone sees a load of text, they're going to switch off. They might, if it's really interesting to them, engage with that. But my experience is the more text on a page, the more likely people are to switch off. So with 20 carousels, you can get 1 point per page very easily, and people will digest that. And if you don't believe me, just look at things like Netflix. So if, say, someone says to you, oh, do you want to watch a 5-hour film? You'll be like, no, thank you, because it's a 5-hour film. Oh, do you want to watch like 10 45-minute episodes of a series, no problem, I'll smash that out, because they're looking at it in small chunks rather than the big picture. So carousels are great for deep dives. They allow you to get a lot of information for people to read at their own pace, and you can cover a lot of different stuff in one go. Posts, I would say, are okay for a deep dive because you can have an image which is talking or showing about the thing you're going to talk about, and then have a detailed caption. And the reason why this is different to a reel is if you see how reels are done, when you look at the text comes over the video. So it's sometimes it can be harder for people to read, and you have to press read more and that sort of stuff. So there's more things they have to do to read more. Whereas with a post, the post is there and the text is directly under it. So if you've got a very good header, which tells the person why they should read the rest of it, you can go into a fairly deep dive in the text. And say some people do read more, their way of taking stuff in, their preferred method is reading posts rather than carousels or reels. So you can get a reasonable deep dive onto an image post. So it's worth doing these things. And generally, you can take the same content, the same copy that you got onto the carousel, tweak it maybe slightly for the image post, and you can repurpose that post really easily, say a couple of days later or a week later. You don't have to think of brand new stuff to say because you're talking about the same thing. And some people will have seen the carousel and not seen the post, and vice versa. So don't be afraid of repurposing the copy, the comments, because if people have read it before, they'll just, okay, I've read that before, and they'll go off. But people who haven't read it before will get the value. And finally, for stories, deep dive, not great there, really. I mean, you could argue that you could have like 20 stories, which looks like a little centipede across the top of your thing. You could put multiple slides, and if they keep tapping, they can go forward or backwards. So there is that argument there. But for me, because when a story has more slides on it, it gets shown to less people, I would say a deep dive is not the best thing there. Stick with carousels for deep dive and all your image posts. Okay, so now you've got an idea about what type of content is the best to post on the type of post you can make, if that makes sense. There's a few other things to remember. On all of your content, you're going to get secret lurkers. These are the people who never engage with anything. They never save anything, or well, they might do because you don't know who saves your stuff. They never comment. They never send you a DM. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, they'll drop you a message saying, yes, I'd like to work with you. Or they'll reply to one of your emails and say, yes, I'd like to work with you. And they'll just come out of the blue. So with that in mind, I wouldn't be that focused on how many likes you get, because I get a lot more saves on my carousels than I do likes. The things I get the most likes on, which are pictures of me and my family, pictures of me in the gym, pictures of me when I used to be on stage doing bodybuilding competitions, they get a lot of likes, but they don't result in direct sales, as in someone says, oh, I saw the picture of you on bodybuilding competition stage and I'd like to work with you. Those sort of things just don't happen, well, for me anyway. And interestingly, the posts that get the least amount of likes sometimes translate into the most amount of customers or customer inquiries. And what I would say about that is that if you've got something which is very sort of niche content, such as solving a very specific problem or talking about a very specific problem, there's going to be people in your audience that see that. It's just not really something they resonate with. But there's going to be a very small amount of people that see that, and that clicks with them straight away. So they're going to be the ones to engage on that. So it's not the most viral type of posts that are going to get you the most engagement and people saying, yes, I'd like to work with you. So don't get too hung up on likes. And the other thing I should stress here is when you're doing your content, try and focus on one key idea for a piece of content. Don't try and go into multiple ideas, multiple things to do in each piece of content, because A, you'll run out of time, especially on a reel. You'll run out of space on a carousel. You won't be able to develop the idea properly, and you'll run out of space on the copy when you're doing the image post. So think about one key idea. Now, for example, I did a post the other day which was 7 ways to sell more stuff on social media. The key idea there was how to sell more stuff on social media. And I discussed 7 ideas. What I didn't say is, hey, now that people have inquired to buy from you, here's how to do the sales call. I didn't bring that into it as well, because that would have diluted the content and would have been too much for people to digest. They want one key idea to digest, get some information on, and take action on. If you can remember that in your content, it'll be more engaging and it'll be easier to write as well. If you're running out of ideas for your content, here's a few things you can do. The first thing is to get my content factory, which will help you develop 100 ideas for content. You can get that completely for free. Just drop a comment below, or you can go on Instagram, Tom Blackman Coach, and just comment on any of my videos or send me a DM saying factory, and I'll send it over. My automated bot thing will send it over for you. That will help you to develop 100 ideas into content, and it will also help you plan out that content. Now, the way I do my content is what I call the plan, which is an acronym, of course, because I like acronyms. So first you have the promise, problem, or the purpose of the post. This is also called the hook by some people. So this is right at the beginning as to why they should read, listen, or swipe right on the carousels to get more info. Then we've got the light bulb, which is the thing they hadn't thought about, or a new idea, which they go, oh, that's interesting. Yes, tell me more about that. It could also be debunking a myth, such as you don't have to cut out carbs for fat loss, for example, and here's why. Then you have the action, and this is a thing they have to do. So the ones you said, look, I'm going to help you do this thing, and here's the thing that you need to remember when doing this. Then you need to say, okay, here's how to do that thing. And then once you've explained that and not waffled too much, then we go into the next steps, which is the thing they need to do after finishing digesting that piece of content. So this is the call to action, and that's going to be either asking for your free trial or free product that you do. It could be going to watch a video. It could be signing for a webinar. It could even be joining your coaching or DMing you for coaching. Make sure you have at the end of each piece of content something they have to do next. Because if someone watches your content or reads your content or watch your videos or reads all your carousels, and at the end of it, it's just, hey, thanks for reading, bye. But they really want something else to do. They really want to take the next step with you, and you don't give them that, they probably won't do that. Don't rely on people going, hey, that was really interesting content. Thanks very much. I would like to work with you, because people just don't work like that. If you tell people, here's what you need to do to take the next step with me, and it's very easy for them to do that, they're much more likely to do that. The other thing I like to do for pretty much all my content is to script out my stuff. I use the Notes app on my phone or my Mac, and I just script out exactly what I'm going to say. Either it's in bullet points, or I write out the exact sentence I want to say. Because when you're recording content, you can have the camera here, and then on your computer, like I've got here, you've got the screen, and I've got the bullet points here. After you've recorded something, you can go back to your notes, look at that, and then come back to the camera and start again, continue the sentence. So when you edit the video, it all flows nicely. Remember, you don't have to do everything in one take. I used to do that, and it took ages to get content out. Now I just record a script, and I cut out the bits on like and I'm having looked at the script again over here, and that helped me to get content out a lot faster. The other thing is that the script that you write out can be very easily repurposed into the caption, which you're then going to put into your reels or carousels or your image post. Just a reminder here that how you talk and how you write is going to be slightly different. Don't read the exact script that you're going to write in the caption. Adjust it slightly for your language or mannerisms and how you talk. And the last thing to remember here is don't over edit your stuff. I think it's a bit 2022, having flashy things jumping in and out and all these captions going off on screen and all these dopamine type hits coming from your phone. That sort of content I think is a little bit older now. But that being said, don't just have you talking monotone to the camera for a full 60 seconds, because that sort of stuff can turn people off really, really quickly. It's very easy to record on one camera. If you're doing it at a slight angle, you can then flip the camera inside your editing app, whichever one you use, and it looks as though you have multiple camera angles. I can't remember when I saw that, but I do it all the time. And it helps just break up the monotony. If the reel has to be just you talking to the camera and there's no other props or anything else or images you can show, then changing the camera angles ever so slightly, zooming in, zooming out, all those sorts of things can help keep the viewer engaged and make sure they don't switch off. Hope that was helpful and helps reduce your stress and anxiety from content posting a little bit. If you do want the Content Factory to help you with generating your content, just comment Factory on any one of my Instagram posts or leave me a comment below and I'll send it over. And I'll see you on the next video. Thanks a lot. Bye.